All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Brody. I'm with the Lemelson Center at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. Thanks for joining us for our fourth panel of the day. This is our final panel, unfortunately. I feel that we just did the panel out in the yard there, and if, as I mentioned before, that we can talk about innovation, creativity, courage, skateboarding, and we can talk about that, and we will, but we just witnessed it, and it was amazing, and I appreciate what we just saw. And I look forward to, at the conclusion of the panel, getting a chance to go back in the yard and seeing the conclusion of that trick. No pressure there, Dan. So we're going to be talking about adaptability and inclusivity in skateboarding and wheelchair motocross. And so first, I just want to begin by having the panelists introduce themselves. So Lily?
Hi, I'm Lily. I'm 15 years old. I'm a WCMX rider from the UK.
Did everybody hear Lily?
Yeah, I think the mic was mic closer to you.
Hi, I'm Lily. I'm 15 years old and I'm a WCMX rider from the UK.
I'm Dan Mancina. I'm a skateboarder who is visually impaired.
My name is Oscar Lerdo Jr. I skate with a prosthetic leg.
My name is Aaron Wheels Fotheringham, and I ride WCMX from the U.S.
I'm Robert Brink. I don't know. These are my friends, so I'm moderating.
He's our dad.
Don't worry about me. So we're going to start with what kind of innovation over the years have you seen in skate parks, and what have you seen implemented, and what has worked, what hasn't worked, and what do we need? What do skate parks need to meet the needs and functionalities that would make them better for you?
It's my turn.
Oh, go ahead.
I was always, growing up, I was always like, I like riding skate parks because I don't need to change anything, and for the longest time, that was the mindset, because I was just riding the same park that the skaters and the BMX riders were riding. And, just recently we had a WCMX contest at a park, and they built the rails to come to the ground so we could actually get on them easier. And it really opened my eyes, and I was like, dang, it is pretty nice to make things easier and make more tricks possible. And so I think just, adapting some parks to have maybe just slight changes, just like making rails easier to get onto, whether that's bringing it to the ground or having a jump so you can get onto the rail, stuff like that.
Like the one you were just skating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also just it's just the awareness, because the people who build the parks aren't even thinking about, outside of BMX skateboarding and maybe scooters and rollerblading. So the culture itself is super open to everyone and everything. So if they know that there are skaters who are, WCMX or visually impaired or any impairment, they will work to do it. So it's just events like this and getting the awareness and just letting people know, hey, we're here too,
Dan, what are some of the things that would, in a skate park, that would help you?
Number one is the size of the objects. Everything here is really small and short. So if it's a ledge, most ledges are only about 10 feet long, maybe 8 feet. And that's just not enough time for me to feel with my cane and gauge where the ledge is. So the size of the objects is an easy fix that would, kind of universal design so anybody can still skate it. And then, utilizing things like audio, speakers within objects, tactile ground, and good contrast between objects and the floor can also help.
You were saying you had some ideas about you had some ideas about stuff if you were to design your own skate park, what you want to do, stuff hanging from the ceiling, or super wide quarter pipes at the end of each. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I have a park design that I have drawn out that utilizes, like I said, size of objects. So if it's a quarter pipe, it's the entire length of the wall. So you're able to have more kind of leeway and more freedom and not having to hit like one straight line, because going in a straight line is the hardest thing to do as a visually impaired skater. And then, like I said, contrast. So if it's a white floor, it's going to be like a dark black object for people who have low vision. And then speakers within objects to give guidance of where the end of the ledge is, where the middle of it is, and maybe where there's like a pillar or something that's sketchy or dangerous. And then anything from, like you said, things hanging from the ceiling where it would hit your arm and then you would know when to pop or what to avoid, something like that. And then I'm sure Lily and Wheels can speak on like the exact things that you need. You talked a little bit, Wheels, like a ramp up to rails or rails that go to the floor. And I'm sure like the grade of a ramp, I'm sure it can't be too steep, right? Or you guys can't get up as easily.
Definitely. With like the steepness of the ramps, definitely makes it harder for a WCMX rider to get up the ramp. So if you were to have something really steep, it'd be a lot easier for a skateboarder to get up. But for a WCMX rider, it's a lot different, and especially coming down that ramp too. Because we don't like how skateboarders can like use their knees and like their body to move into it. We can't do that.
And I just want to add, I think a lot of the time, especially with like super steep quarters, like I like big drop-ins, but if they're super steep, it's hard for us to like stay on the surface of the ramp. So then we drop to far down in the transition, and it just makes it hard to get speed for the next thing.
I think, Lily, we were talking on a call, and you were also talking about the deck size of the quarter pipes
Yeah, definitely.
or half
That's
and
also
mini ramps.
a problem with skate parks. And like coming from a UK point of view, skate parks are popping up everywhere now. And like it's absolutely gutting when you see a new skate park. The plans look like really cool, and then you actually get there and you can't get on top of any of the ramps, and that's absolutely gutting. And it's also the same for like the entrance of the like to the skate parks and like how wide some of the ramps are as well. Like just saying this little bank coming up here, I can barely fit onto it to get up to the ramp.
Oscar, tell us about, earlier today we had Paul Schmidt talking about the history of the skateboard and the changes that have been made over time, changes of the board. Can you talk about how those changes have impacted you as skating with the prosthetic?
Yeah, definitely. I think the natural evolution of the skateboard has really benefited amputee skaters because to give you guys an idea of how it feels to skate with prosthetic, just picture putting on a pair of stilts and standing on your skateboard. And that's basically it. But definitely riding old school boards like Visions and stuff without noses would be detrimental to any amputee skateboarder right now. I think the natural evolution of having a nose and a tail really benefited the amputee skateboarders and just allowed me just having that nose really just to get that proper setting on the skateboard.
Can you talk more? We were talking earlier about like the prosthetic itself, and now you have a better one. It has some kind of bushing inside. So like, how has that changed and benefited?
I think with everything, there's innovation and evolution. Definitely within the prosthetic industry, they've geared more, making prosthetic feet geared more towards action sports. In the beginning of my skate career, I would always break my prosthetic foot on backside tricks, backside flips, back 180s, whatever, just because the durability of the foot was not there. Now I found the right company, partnered with them, and we basically just revolutionized the foot to have some kind of little bushing to mimic ankle movement as much as it can. It's really not a lot, but if I land on my toes, like on my pinky toe, or what would be my prosthetic pinky toe, like it would still pivot, like if I could do that ankle movement.
Is it less stable than the older prosthetic you used to use?
No, I think it's more stable actually.
That's so cool.
So, and following up on that, so, we talked about invention as being a collaborative process, needing a lot of input from other people. So, can each of you tell us a little bit more about your process and the kinds of people you work with to develop these new technologies? So Aaron in particular, you've basically invented a new sport, and you needed to also invent a whole new set of technology to participate. But from each of you, I'm curious to hear about who the people you work with to make this happen.
Yeah, so I was really fortunate at an early age to meet a man named Mike Box, and he was he started actually a couple wheelchair companies, and when I met him, I was 9, and I was just breaking wheelchairs like no one's business. I was, my parents were stressing because wheelchair parts were pretty expensive, and like, I mean, every time I'd go to the skate park, I would come home and my wheelchair was just like destroyed. My mom didn't want to, stop me from riding, but something needed to happen, and that's why Mike was such a blessing in my life, because he literally told me, he's like, I want you to break these chairs and I'll make them stronger for you. And so, I mean, I took him up on that, and just over the years, we changed the suspension and added cross bracing, and it's got Fox shocks on it, and it's crazy to see how far the chairs come, and now they hold up very well, and the chair has made it so many more things are possible.
Would you break today?
I guess they don't hold up that well.
He did a backflip on the wall ride.
I'm sorry, he did a what?
I was doing a backflip off this wall back there, and due to my weight gaining over the last few months, I snapped this front wheel off, so feeling disabled now.
So Lily, you're coming up in the sport. What do you see happening now with the technology, and where do you see it going to? What do you want to see happen?
Well, for the start of it, my story is quite similar to Aaron's on how I had a bad chair, I kept breaking it, and we worked with a company to make better chairs. But I'm also working with Toyota to change the skate parks as well, and just seeing like how it's changing, and hopefully like in the future things will be more accessible, ramps will be a little bit wider, and just that little bit can make so much of a difference too.
I think, like I said, the prosthetic legs have definitely evolved over the years. For me personally, the two pivotal people in my life that kept me skateboarding were my prosthetist, Chad Marquise, and Reggie Showers from College Park Industries, that really helped me get the right foot in and just be able to skateboard without snapping my prosthetic foot.
I don't use much technology. I have my cane, and I go through those. I broke mine today as well. But I guess technology that would help would be something like an adapted park utilizing like speakers and sound and lights for low vision people and then fully blind people. I try to keep it simple though, that I can pack light with a couple extra canes, and I don't like having to rely on anything other than really myself and my cane. So yeah, I don't have much technology in my adaptions.
One last follow-up on the technology for all of you. Has there been anything that's been tried, presented to you, and would utterly fail, just not useful to you in any way?
Sure, wheels. You probably went through a lot of chairs. You probably went through a lot of chairs, right? Lily and wheels, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few prototypes that just didn't work at all. On this chair, there's a 4-link suspension, similar to what you'd find on a trophy truck and stuff. And we tried a 3-link and a few other suspensions, and this one has actually worked. But there have been quite a few inventions I've seen at trade shows and tried a few of them, and just kind of didn't work at all.
I have an idea for when you were trying the Rainbow Rail. What if like you had some kind of, how bowling lanes have those bumper bars? Like what if you had some kind of bumper bars to keep you in line with rails like that if you didn't have anybody towing you?
Right. Some kind of, that's part of my park design too. For like a drop-in ramp, there's kind of a guide rail along the side. Because like I said, the hardest thing is going straight and knowing when you're turning just a little bit, because you have to be like right on when you're skating ledges and rails. So yeah, I think that would definitely help. I've tried to think of things that are like portable that I could bring to a spot that could keep me going in a straight line, like a really 2-inch high ledge that I could guide with my cane. Those are good ideas.
So getting into the topic of the Paralympics, we wanted to know what would be your ideal? Because each of you, are coming from a different place. Maybe not Aaron and Lily, but what would be your ideal setup for how the Paralympics work? And are there any immediate concerns?
Well, I'd love it to be like the same park that the skateboarders and BMXers are using, but obviously for that to happen, there would have to be a few changes into the skate park. But like what Aaron said about that skate park, which changed the rails before the competition, that skate park, you wouldn't even think that, I don't know if it was designed for wheelchairs or not, but it was really perfect. It was you could get out of the bowls on your own and you didn't need any assistance around the park, and just have something like that at the Paralympics where everyone's included together and we're not made to feel different would be so cool.
So there you're making a distinction, I think, but am I correct, between the Paralympics and the Olympic Games themselves?
Yeah.
So what about even right now within competition among para-athletes? How does the distinction between different groups of athletes make sense to you, or it doesn't make sense to you?
It kind of makes sense, but doesn't in the same way, because it's done in divisions. So there's beginners division, which is under 16, and then beginners over 16, same for amateur and advanced, and then there's a pro and women's, which I think that's a good way of doing it, but you don't see, say if you were to compare to wheelchair racing or para swimming, there's different classifications for different types of disabilities. Because if you think about it, it's not really fair for someone who has, say, mild cerebral palsy just in their lower limbs to be against someone who's had a spinal cord injury that affects them from the chest down and they have no core strength or anything like that.
Right. So yeah, to add to that, just the divisions would have to be pretty specific. I think for amputees also, Oscar, somebody with a leg amputee compared to somebody with just an arm amputee.
Yeah, not only that, just anybody I'm a below knee amputee and above knee amputee. It doesn't, it'd be harder, different. I would score them higher if they did a kickflip versus if I did a kickflip or something,
So the judging, right? You have to have somebody who's super knowledgeable on whatever the disability is, or whatever you want to call it, to know how to score something higher or lower. I don't want to be a judge, though. I want to skate.
Maybe for those who, can you share with us how the judging does work right now?
That's still a work in progress, really. I know the contest that Aaron and Lilia and I are part of, there's, like she was saying, there's different classifications. It's harder to judge somebody versus a spina bifida WCMX user versus, a spinal cord injury. Right now, it's really a matter of just educating. Right now, the judges are basically former riders who have ridden and understand the stipulations of the different disabilities and injuries. But ideally, if it ever gets to the Paralympics, it's really about educating the masses and then getting the right judges that understand, what the injuries and the skill level and the different abilities that are out there.
I also agree with that, 'cause I was recently at a competition in Germany and the judges were I don't know, some of them skated, some of them BMX'd, but they had no idea about WCMX and they were literally scoring long rail grinds less than a manual. So I think they also need to be more educated about the sport in general.
Why did you guys and girl, why did you choose skateboarding and WCMX instead of traditional sports that you could have gone down the route like most people do?
I said this last night. I think for the most of it, I can't speak for all of us here, but for me personally, traditional sports basically kind of failed us because, anybody in a traditional sport is going to look at us and pick us last, as cliche as it is. Skateboarding is so individualistic that if you go to the skate park, there's no teams, there's no just the camaraderie that's already just naturally there at the skate park, from the little board tapping of clapping your hands for dropping in or attempting. That's what kept me in and sucked me in, because that's how I found a group of my best friends, just because they were like, oh, sick, you're trying to skate, that's cool. Oh, you got one leg? Oh, sick. You're even sicker. Just keep skating and come with us and skate.
That's how I met all of you. How about you, Dan?
I lost my sight throughout my life, so I used to skate when I was sighted. So it's always been kind of ingrained in me and a part of just who I am. I mean, I stopped for a while when I started losing the majority of my vision, and I just wasn't happy without it. So, and like Oscar said, it's so like everyone's just rad. You know, you have friends all over the world and super inclusive, and like I don't know, I can't picture myself doing anything else. So yeah.
And Lily and Aaron, you could have done like basketball or volleyball, or there's plenty of like chair sports that you could have done, right? But you chose WCMX instead.
I'm gonna compare it to swimming because I used to swim, but for me in swimming it's just going back and forth in a pool trying to get faster every time. Whether for like WCMX and skateboarding, your opportunities are endless and you can do what you want, and it looks so much cooler in my opinion too.
Yeah, you just have more creativity, you know. Like you said, you can do whatever you want, whatever you can think of as far as you can take it. So,
I mean, and for me, growing up, I was always super pumped on X Games and watching Tony Hawk and Bob Burnquist and all the guys skate and ride BMX. But I mean, I can't freaking stand. So that wasn't an option. And then I tried wheelchair basketball, and the thing with that was it was just like, well, first of all, they wouldn't let me play with the adults. I was a little kid, and they wouldn't let me play with the adults, and so I didn't like all the rules. And when I started going to the skate park, it was just like pure freedom. I didn't need to have a team. I didn't need anything, just myself and my wheelchair. And you know, and like Lily said, it's really unlimited with the creativity and, you know, just being able to try new things and figure it out.
Can I also add on to that, like with a lot of other like adaptive sports and stuff like that, you are literally just put with other differently abled people and you're sectioned out from like able-bodied people, and with like this sport you're with everyone else and you're all being treated equally and you're all riding on wheels, and that's like the main part about it. You're just all having fun riding together.
Yeah.
Anyone have any questions for these cool people?
Vato loco.
Thanks very much. Hey, actually about the time that they built this whole complex around the London Olympics, a large television network, Channel 4, had a very successful campaign called Superhumans around the Paralympics. And I just want to know how that large organizations, networks, can help to further the conversation on and how these sports are perceived for the benefit of all those involved.
That's a great question. Thank you. I believe, though, if the mainstream industry that wants to support, I think it's just a matter of outreach. It's a matter of education and outreach. At least for us back in the States, there's not many adaptive contests. There's a handful of skateboard industry companies that support with product. We really need more funding and monetary support as far as getting the individuals out to these contests, because they're scattered across the states, and I'm sure it's the same with every country. They're not all in one uniform, in one unified area. I believe it's just outreach and supporting and, just piggybacking on events. Like like for Street League, for example, if your company was interested in supporting an adaptive movement, then we can work with you and approach people like Street League, people like Vans Park Series to get adaptive divisions on these contests, especially on the road now that we're really on the road to the Olympics and hopefully the Paralympics.
yeah, that's the first step, right? Like things like the X Games, Vans, Street League, like for them to step up and have like a contest would be huge. Yeah, and outreach is huge. People don't think there's a lot of us out there, but people reach out to me on Instagram every day who are visually impaired or amputee who skate. So there's, so many of us out there. And we just need some way to show it, like a contest or something like that.
We got time for more questions?
Yeah. I think we have time for one more. And as somebody raised their hands, I think that's what you're just speaking to is an aspect of innovation. So we think sometimes that technology and ideas just come at us and we have to accept them and implement them into our lives. But there is a choice to be made, and part of whether or not something becomes innovative, becomes widely used, is in part dependent on you. You have choices to make about your decisions of the use of technologies or what ideas or what sort of organizations you support. So as Dan said, if more people express their interest in adaptive athletics, then that's a message that can be heard by those who make decisions about whether or not to support them and put them on TV. But one more question?
I just wanted to ask about, do you think that brands are supporting you guys and what you're trying to achieve? Do you think there's scope for them to help and assist you more with your dreams and your ambitions?
I definitely believe, like I said, there's a good, small but a good demographic of brands that are supporting. Brands like Real, who hooked up, got a board for Dan. Bones Bearings hooks me up, Bones Wheels. But it's a lot of just reaching out. And, it's just like I said, the more the support is, better. Like, product is great, but, just more integral support aside from just like seeing, we did this donation, let's write it off, okay, and moving on. Like something just continuous support that would just be long lasting.
Yeah, like you said, Real for me was huge, and Adidas has been huge for me too, because I'm just part of the team. Like you said, I don't want to just be like some charity one-time thing. Like, I just want to go out and skate with the boys, and be a part of a team. But I mean, it's hard for the able-bodied, the average skateboarder to get hooked up. So it's just even harder for, somebody like me or anyone else who's disabled. It's such a small world to be a part of, and to get support is hard for anybody, I think. And hopefully, the Olympics can do stuff, do certain things that can change that, and just have more, money and just a bigger industry to work with and hook up people and support people.
I know on the WCMX side, we've reached out to a lot of brands and asked them about sponsorship and stuff like that. And most of the replies have been we don't have the funding for it, because if you think about it, the main global brand gives it to amount of money to Europe, and then Europe gives it out to each country in Europe, and then it goes like that, and it only ends up going to say 5 skateboarders, 5 BMXers, and there isn't a budget for WCMX riders.
I mean, I've had the opportunity to work with a tire company that I believe Lily rides for as well, Schwab Tires. So they make bicycle and wheelchair tires, and a few years ago they started making an actual tire for WCMX, and it's been cool to see that kind of support of the sport. But like these guys are saying, it would be supreme to get it, more in the spotlight to the next level. Yeah.
What do you want me to say? Are we
Well,
good?
I want to say this. So we're going to wrap up. I want to thank Rob for moderating this panel with me, and I just want to say to Aaron and to Dan and to Oscar and to Lily that it has been such a pleasure to have you as part of INNOSKATE in 2019. I think back on the course of this day and what I saw, the way that you all were working with and playing with your fellow skaters, your fellow riders, what you taught them, what you showed them through your actions and your presence was incredible. You've had a huge impact on this day, and we really thank you for being here and being part of this.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Jeff.
thank you. Thank you, skateboarding. Yeah.
So let me say this. We are going to roll into a best trick contest shortly. I'm going to leave that up to Ryan and the border guys to get that started. But sort of in a formal sense, I want to say thank you to everyone who's been here as part of INNOSKATE today. There's been so many incredible people and organizations who have helped put this together. So I want to say to Autodesk and the U.S. Embassy for supporting us and having the vision to make this happen. To the folks at Here East and UCL who have given us this tremendous space. To all of our education partners, which again include Autodesk and UCL and Chelsea Football and West Ham Football and the FAR Academy and so many others. It's been such a great day. Ramp Supply, supplying the skate obstacles, and many, many more who have made this possible. I am grateful to all of you and to all of the panelists throughout the day, and especially to all of you for coming out and being part of this. So enjoy the best trick contest. Think back on what we heard today. And we look forward to seeing you at the next INNOSKATE events in the future. Thanks.
Thank you.